Imagine a race where reaching the finish line is not only about speed, you also have to kill the other racers if you want to survive. Losing here does not simply mean losing the race, it means death. And now a man has entered this deadly race without knowing that it is about to become the biggest battle of his life. This man is Jansen, who was living a peaceful life with his wife and his little daughter. But one day, when Jansen returned home from work and opened the door, he saw something that changed his whole life in a single moment. His wife had been brutally murdered. Before Jansen could understand what had happened, the killer suddenly sprayed something on him and knocked him unconscious. When Jansen opened his eyes again, he saw his wife lying dead in front of him. Unfortunately, the police had also arrived by then. The moment they saw a bloody knife in Jansen's hand, they immediately believed that he was the killer. Jansen kept trying to explain that he had not murdered his wife, but no one listened to him. For the police, the evidence against him was enough. So Jansen, who had already lost his wife, now lost his freedom as well. He was arrested for his wife's murder and sent straight to Terminal Island, one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. But Jansen had no idea that something even more dangerous than prison was waiting for him inside. It was a deadly race where death could be waiting at every turn. The moment Jansen entered the prison, he was welcomed with violence. First, hot water was thrown on him, then the guards beat him badly with sticks. After that, they threw a disgusting powder all over him and locked him inside a prison cell. As soon as Jansen entered the cell, several huge and dangerous prisoners started staring at him like they were ready to tear him apart. The guard locked the cell and walked away. A few seconds later, sounds of fighting started coming from inside. The guard smiled because he thought Jansen was getting beaten up, but when he came back to see what was happening, he was shocked. The same prisoners who had looked so dangerous were now lying on the floor. Jansen had defeated all of them by himself. The guard could not believe that an ordinary-looking man like Jansen had beaten so many dangerous prisoners alone. The next morning, Jansen went to the prison dining area for breakfast. Everyone was staring at him because the news about what happened the previous night had already spread through the whole prison. The prisoners who had thought Jansen was an easy target had learned the hard way that he was not someone they could easily mess with. Seeing Jansen quickly gaining respect inside the prison, two bald prisoners came over to show their power. They believed Jansen was new and would easily bow down in front of them. But they had no idea that the man they were trying to scare was about to become their biggest problem. One of them walked up to Jansen and directly spat into his food. Jansen looked at him angrily, but before anything else happened, their boss Marco also arrived. Marco quietly stood behind Jansen and kept trying to provoke him into a fight. Jansen was not the kind of man who would stay silent for long. In the next moment, he suddenly attacked Marco and knocked him down. After that, anyone who tried to come at Jansen was also beaten down one after another. Within a few moments, the whole situation had completely changed. Before Jansen could seriously hurt or kill them, the guards suddenly rushed in and stopped the fight. They immediately grabbed Jansen and took him away. After seeing how strong Jansen was and how well he could fight, the prison warden Hennessy called him to her office. Hennessy had already realized that there was something special about this man. So without wasting any time, she gave Jansen an offer that completely surprised him. Hennessy told him that if he agreed to do one special job for her, he could earn his freedom and get out of prison. For Jansen Ames, this offer was nothing less than a chance to get his life back, because the only thing he wanted was to return to his daughter. Warden Hennessy told Jansen that she wanted him to take the place of the prison's most famous racer, Frankenstein. Frankenstein had been badly injured during the previous race, and almost nobody knew his real identity because he always raced while wearing a special mask. Because of this, Hennessy planned to put the same mask on Jansen and make everyone believe that the original Frankenstein had returned to the death race. In return, Jansen was promised the one thing he wanted more than anything else, his freedom. He was ready to risk his life for that promise, but he had no idea that getting out of Terminal Island would not be easy. Hennessy was about to throw him directly into a deadly game where one mistake could cost him his life. Jansen was then taken to the prison garage, where Frankenstein's old crew was already waiting for him. Coach was there with Lists and Gunner, along with Frankenstein's heavily modified car. Coach carefully looked Jansen over because this was the man who would now sit behind the wheel and race as Frankenstein. Jansen still did not understand how dangerous that car really was. It was not just a vehicle that could lead him to freedom, it was also a machine built for killing. Coach took Jansen closer to the car and began explaining how the death race worked. The car was covered with heavy armor and equipped with powerful weapons and defensive systems. Coach explained that different symbols on the track could activate weapons or defensive equipment during the race. If Jansen drove over the right one, he could use those weapons against the other racers or protect himself from their attacks. The problem was that Jansen had never taken part in a death race before. Coach made it clear that even though Jansen had racing experience, this race was completely different. One small mistake could get him killed before he ever reached the finish finish line. Jensen now had only two choices. He could enter the race and fight for his freedom, or stay inside Terminal Island and spend the rest of his life as a prisoner. After explaining the car, Coach and his team also told Jensen about the other racers he would be facing. Every racer had a different style, a different car, and different ways of killing opponents. One of the biggest threats was Machine Gun Joe, a brutal racer who was extremely dangerous on the track. Then there was Hector Grimm, also known as the Grim Reaper, a violent psychopath who had already killed many people both inside and outside the race. Jensen was also warned about Pashenko, the leader of the Brotherhood prisoners, who had killed several men on the track. Another racer was Travis Colt, a former professional driver and one of the most skilled racers inside the prison. Coach made one thing very clear to Jensen. He should never underestimate any of them because in the death race, one small mistake could easily become his last. Around the same time, Jensen noticed some prisoners wearing strange metal bracelets around their wrists. He looked at them carefully because something about those bracelets immediately caught his attention. He was told that the devices were used to stop prisoners from escaping Terminal Island. The moment Jensen saw one of them clearly, a memory from the night his wife was murdered flashed through his mind. The man who had killed his wife had been wearing the exact same kind of bracelet. Jensen suddenly froze because this meant his wife's murder might not have been as simple as the police had made it look. Someone connected to Terminal Island could have been involved. But Jensen had no time to investigate it yet. With no other way to win his freedom, he finally put on Frankenstein's mask and got inside the car. As the race was about to begin, Jensen could feel the pressure building because every vehicle around him looked more like a weapon of war than a normal racing car. But before the race could start, a group of women suddenly arrived at the track. Jensen looked at them in surprise because they were not there only to stand beside the racers. These women would act as navigators during the race, and one of them was about to become extremely important to Jensen's survival. A woman named Case gets into Jensen's car as his navigator. As soon as the race signal is given, all the cars roar forward and rush onto the track together. At the start, every racer has to depend only on speed because weapons cannot be used yet. All the drivers push their cars as fast as possible and try to move ahead of each other. Jensen grips the steering wheel tightly and focuses on the track. But he keeps watching the racers around him because he knows that the moment weapons are allowed, this will stop being a normal race and turn into a deadly battle. After some time, that moment finally arrives. Hennessy gives the order to activate the weapon and death plates on the track. Three special symbols now become active. The first one is the sword plate. When a racer drives over it, the car's weapons become active. The second is the shield plate, which activates the car's defensive system and helps protect it from enemy attacks. The third is the skull plate, and this is the most dangerous one because it activates deadly traps on the track. Now every racer starts fighting to reach these plates first. The second weapons are allowed, the entire race changes. The same cars that were racing only for speed are now trying to destroy each other. Jensen has barely gained control of his car when another racer attacks him. He quickly turns the wheel and narrowly escapes the hit. At that moment, he understands that speed alone will not keep him alive. He will have to fight for survival every second. Soon the other racers begin targeting him from all sides. Machine Gun Joe becomes one of the biggest threats because his car is armed with powerful machine guns. He starts firing at the cars around him while Jensen keeps moving and avoids the bullets as much as possible. Another racer then comes close and tries to smash Jensen's car from the side. Jensen suddenly turns away and makes him miss the attack. During all this chaos, Jensen notices one of the weapon plates on the track. Coach had already explained that driving over these plates would activate the weapons in his car. Jensen sees his chance and drives directly over the symbol. In the next moment, the weapons in Frankenstein's car become active. For the first time, Jensen finally has a way to fight back. He aims at the car running in front of him and opens fire. The heavy shots hit the vehicle and make the driver lose control. The car starts scraping across the track before flipping over violently. Meanwhile, Hennessy gives another order and activates one of the deadly traps connected to the skull plate. As soon as the skull system is turned on, a dangerous trap on the track becomes active. Hector Grimm uses the situation to his advantage and smashes another car toward the trap. The vehicle spins out of control and gets caught directly inside it. A second later, the trap destroys the car completely while Grimm keeps driving without even slowing down. Grimm becomes excited after taking another racer out, but his happiness does not last long. Another racer activates his weapon system and releases metal spikes onto the road. Grimm's car drives straight over them and its tires are badly damaged. With Grimm now unable to control his vehicle properly, his opponent uses the perfect chance to launch a powerful missile at him. The missile hits Grimm's car and the whole vehicle explodes, flying off the track. Somehow Grimm survives the blast and crawls out of the wreck in terrible condition. He can barely walk, but at least he thinks he has survived. Unfortunately, that relief lasts only a few seconds. Before he can even move out of the way, another racing car comes speeding toward him and runs him over before continuing down the track. While all this chaos is happening, Jensen keeps his car under control and continues pushing forward. But the race is only becoming more dangerous because the remaining drivers are even more deadly, and some of them are ready to do anything to make sure Frankenstein never reaches the finish line. As the deadly race continued, the number of viewers also started rising fast because every few seconds one of the racers was getting close to death. People could not take their eyes off their screens. The closer the race got to its final part, the more excited the audience became. By now, Hennessy had already made a huge amount of money from the event, and she was extremely happy with the results. But what pleased her most was Jensen Ames, because Frankenstein's return had made the death race even more popular. Almost twice as many people were watching compared to the previous races. Meanwhile, Jensen kept pushing his car forward at full speed. Luckily, he managed to drive over a weapon plate at the perfect moment. Now he finally had another chance to attack the racer in front of him. Jensen quickly pressed the weapon button, but to his surprise, not a single bullet came out. Seeing the problem, Case immediately opened her seat belt and climbed partly out of the car. She started hitting and fixing the machine gun, hoping to make it work again while Jensen struggled to keep the car under control. At the same time, a female navigator from another nearby car climbed out with a machine gun and started firing directly at them. Jensen quickly turned the car and managed to move out of her line of fire. He then pushed the car even faster and escaped from the attack. Luckily, Case also managed to get their machine gun working again, but the danger was far from over. Machine Gun Joe soon came up behind Jensen and started firing non-stop at Frankenstein's car. Jensen kept moving from side to side and somehow avoided most of the bullets. A short distance ahead, he spotted a shield plate and immediately drove over it. The defensive system on his car was activated, giving him protection from Joe's gunfire for a short time, but Joe had no intention of letting him escape. Jensen decided to finish him by activating the rear weapon on his car. Once again, nothing happened. The weapon failed at the worst possible moment, and Machine Gun Joe started laughing when he realized Frankenstein could not fight back properly. Jensen now understood that someone had already messed with his car's weapons before the race. This meant the real danger was not only coming from the racers on the track. Someone behind the scenes also wanted to make sure he could not win. Jensen was now trapped in a game where almost everyone seemed to be against him, but he was not ready to give up. He quickly used an extra fuel tank from the car and released it behind him. The fuel spilled over the vehicle chasing them. Case immediately used the opportunity and threw a lighter toward the fuel-covered car. In the next moment, the vehicle burst into flames and exploded, taking the attackers out of the race. With one threat gone, Jensen finally had a chance to move forward. He increased his speed and started closing in on Pashenko's car. As Jensen came close to him, Pashenko suddenly made the same hand gesture that Jensen remembered from the man who murdered his wife. Jensen immediately became suspicious because that small gesture connected Pashenko to the worst night of his life. But before Jensen could do anything, Machine Gun Joe slammed his car hard into Frankenstein's vehicle and sent him crashing across the track. Because of the damage, Jensen failed to win the first stage of the race. His car was badly damaged, but Jensen himself was far from finished because he now believed the man connected to his wife's murder was right there inside the prison. After the race, Jensen was taken directly to Hennessy. She ordered him to prepare for the next stage, but this time Jensen refused. He no longer wanted to keep risking his life for her game. Hennessy, however, knew exactly how to force him back onto the track. She told Jensen that if he refused to race, he might never see his daughter again. His daughter was currently in someone else's care, and a new family had already been chosen for her. The moment Jensen heard this, everything changed. He could not allow his daughter to be taken away from him forever. So even though he hated Hennessy's plan, he had no choice but to accept her condition. Once again, Jensen agreed to put on Frankenstein's mask and prepare himself for another round of the death race. That night, Jensen was in the garage helping repair his damaged car when he suddenly saw Pashenko, the leader of the Brotherhood, walking past him. Jensen had been waiting for a chance to settle the score from the previous race, so he left what he was doing and quietly followed him. But Pashenko's men were already waiting nearby. They suddenly attacked Jensen from all sides and started beating him badly. Jensen tried to fight back, but there were too many of them, and slowly they began to overpower him. Then Pashenko stepped in front of Jensen himself. It was clear that he also wanted to settle his old score with him. Pashenko hit Jensen hard and knocked him down. He knew that punches alone would not be enough to finish him, so he picked up a large wrench and prepared to strike. But just before he could do it, one of Jensen's crew members attacked Pashenko from behind. Pashenko immediately turned around, and the crew member realized he was now in serious trouble. He tried to run, but Pashenko's men quickly caught him and beat him down. Jensen used this chance to grab a metal tool from the floor and smashed it into one of the gang members' legs. He got back on his feet and started fighting them one by one. Within moments, Jensen was beating down everyone who came near him. Pashenko then joined the fight again and attacked Jensen with full force, but this time Jensen was not going to let him escape. He hit Pashenko again and again before throwing him hard into a metal cabinet. When Jensen saw that Pashenko was still conscious, his anger became even stronger. He grabbed him and slammed him against the cabinet once more. Jensen then picked up a heavy car part and was ready to finish him. Terrified, Pashenko finally gave up and told Jensen the truth. He admitted that he was the man who murdered Jensen's wife, and he had done it on Warden Hennessy's orders. The moment Jensen heard this, he became furious. Now he knew that Hennessy had arranged his wife's murder and framed him so she could bring him to Terminal Island. Jensen was about to kill Pashenko when a guard suddenly fired a stun gun into him from behind. Jensen collapsed and lost consciousness. The same guards who had treated him badly when he first arrived quickly took control of him again. He was locked away in solitary confinement so he could be kept under control until the next race. The following day, the second stage of the death race was ready to begin, and only 6 racers were left. Everyone knew this round would be even more dangerous because now every driver wanted to remove the others and move closer to victory. As soon as the race started, all the cars rushed forward at full speed, but Jensen deliberately kept his car slow and allowed the other racers to move ahead. This time he was not thinking only about winning the race. He had something else in mind. Jensen suddenly turned his car and drove into a tunnel away from the others. Once they were alone, he threatened Case and forced her to tell him the truth. Case finally admitted that Frankenstein's weapons had been sabotaged before the previous race. She also revealed that she had done it under Hennessy's orders. Jensen now understood the full truth. Hennessy had been controlling everything from behind the scenes, including the problems with his car. Filled with anger, Jensen pushed the car to full speed and raced out of the tunnel. He began catching the other drivers one after another. Soon, he reached Machine Gun Joe and violently slammed his car into Joe's vehicle to settle their earlier score. Joe's car lost control and crashed hard against the track, giving Jensen the chance to move ahead, but Jensen still had one more personal score to settle. His real target was Pashenko, the man who had murdered his wife. Jensen quickly got behind Pashenko's car and started chasing him at full speed. Pashenko tried everything he could to get away, but Jensen had already decided that this time he was not going to let him escape. At the right moment, Case tells Jensen that a shield plate is coming up ahead, but Jensen ignores it and turns toward the weapon plate instead. He drives over the sword symbol and activates the weapons in Frankenstein's car. Now it is clear that Jensen is not thinking only about winning the race. He wants revenge for his wife, and Pashenko is his target. Jensen pushes the car even faster and starts closing the distance between them, but Pashenko is ready to fight back. He also drives over a weapon plate and activates the guns on his car. Now both men are racing toward each other with their weapons ready. Pashenko attacks first and starts firing non-stop at Jensen, but Jensen is prepared this time. He quickly moves his car out of the line of fire and then starts shooting back. Pashenko tries hard to escape, but Jensen stays right behind him. He has already decided that he will not let his wife's killer get away again. A little later, Jensen reaches another plate and activates one of his defensive systems. Thick smoke starts pouring out from the back of Frankenstein's car. Pashenko drives directly into it and can no longer see the track properly. He loses control of his car and crashes hard into a barrier. Jensen speeds past him, but after going a short distance, he suddenly stops. The other racers use this chance to pass him, but Jensen does not care about his position anymore. He still has unfinished business with Pashenko. As Pashenko gets out of his damaged car, Jensen quickly puts Frankenstein's car into reverse and opens the armored rear section. He drives backward at high speed and slams the car into Pashenko. But even that is not enough to calm his anger. Jensen stops again, puts on Frankenstein's mask and steps out of the car. Leaving the vehicle during the race is against the rules, but Jensen no longer cares about Hennessy's rules. He walks directly toward Pashenko because this time he wants to finish what he started. Jensen grabs him and kills him in front of everyone, finally taking revenge for his wife's murder. After openly breaking the rules, Jensen stands there for a moment and looks directly toward the cameras. It is almost like he is challenging Hennessy herself. Then he calmly gets back into Frankenstein's car and returns to the race. Hennessy is furious because nobody has ever challenged her control of the death race so openly before. Jensen has broken her rules in front of millions of viewers, and she cannot allow that to go unanswered, so she orders her most dangerous hidden weapon to enter the track. It is called the Dreadnought, a massive armored truck covered with machine guns, flamethrowers, and other deadly weapons. The moment Coach sees it entering the race, even he becomes worried because the Dreadnought was built for only one purpose: destroying everything in its path. The huge truck quickly locks onto Jensen and starts firing at Frankenstein's car. Bullets rain down from several machine guns at the same time. Jensen keeps turning from side to side and somehow avoids the attacks, but the Dreadnought refuses to let him escape. One moment it attacks with heavy gunfire, and the next it uses another weapon to blow up anything near him. Explosions start covering the entire track, and several cars around them are destroyed in the chaos. Jensen somehow keeps control of his damaged car and continues moving forward. Still, the giant truck stays right behind him. Several gunmen on top of the Dreadnought keep firing at Jensen, while flames shoot from another side of the truck. Death is now coming at him from every direction. During the chaos, another racer, 14K, also gets caught beside the Dreadnought. Suddenly, large metal spikes come out from the truck's wheels and tear into his car. His female navigator is caught in the attack and is killed instantly. Seeing what has just happened, 14K is horrified. He quickly turns his car away and desperately tries to escape before the Dreadnought can destroy him as well. But before 14K could escape, a cable covered with sharp spikes shot out from the back of the Dreadnought and wrapped tightly around his car. He quickly tried to remove his seat belt and get out, but it was already too late. The huge gun mounted on the truck turned toward him and fired. In one powerful blast, 14K's car was blown apart, taking him out of the race. With 14K gone, only Jensen Ames and Machine Gun Joe were left on the track. The situation was now even more dangerous because both men had to survive the Dreadnought while still trying to beat each other. Jensen quickly realized that neither of them could survive alone. He contacted Joe and told him that they had to work together if they wanted to destroy the giant truck. Joe was Jensen's enemy, but even he understood that there was no other choice. The two racers immediately surrounded the Dreadnought from different sides. The truck kept firing heavy weapons at them, but Jensen and Joe continued avoiding the attacks and slowly pulled ahead. Soon they spotted a skull plate on the track. Both cars rushed over it and moved away just before the deadly trap became active. The Dreadnought followed them directly onto the trap. A moment later, the trap exploded and completely destroyed the massive truck. Hennessy could only watch in shock as her most powerful weapon disappeared inside a huge ball of fire. Jensen and Machine Gun Joe were the only racers left alive, but neither of them completed the stage as the winner. After seeing Jensen survive once again, Hennessy decided that she could no longer take any chances. She secretly ordered her guards to make sure Jensen did not survive the final race. The next day, Hennessy announced the third and final stage in front of the prisoners. But while everyone was focused on the announcement, one of her guards secretly entered the garage carrying an explosive device. He hid the bomb inside Frankenstein's car, making sure Jensen would have no idea that death was already waiting for him inside his own vehicle. Soon the third and final stage arrived. This time, only Jensen Ames and Machine Gun Joe were left to face each other. Before the race began, Hennessy made it clear that she expected the final result to go exactly the way she wanted. What she did not know was that Jensen was about to learn about her final plan. When Jensen got into the car, Case warned him that Hennessy had arranged another trap to make sure he would die during the race. Jensen immediately understood that Hennessy had made her final move. But this time, Jensen was also prepared for her. The starting lights changed and both cars launched forward at full speed. Jensen held the steering wheel tightly and raced onto the track, while knowing that Hennessy's men were still trying to kill him from behind the scenes. A short distance ahead, Case told him to aim for a weapon plate. Jensen moved toward it, but just before his car reached the symbol, Hennessy's control room disabled it for him. Instead, the weapons were activated for Machine Gun Joe. Joe immediately opened fire on Jensen's car. Jensen moved from side to side and somehow avoided the worst of the gunfire while continuing forward. Soon another shield plate appeared ahead. Jensen quickly drove toward it, hoping to activate his defenses, but once again Hennessy's people gave the advantage to Joe. Joe kept chasing Jensen and continued attacking him with everything he had. Jensen was now trapped in a race where even the track itself was being controlled against him. Still, he refused to give up. He avoided one attack after another and kept pushing forward. Everyone watching began to believe that Machine Gun Joe might finally defeat Frankenstein, but Jensen still had one more trick. He suddenly released the heavy steel plate mounted on the back of his car, sending it toward Joe's vehicle. Unfortunately, Joe managed to avoid it at the last moment. Seeing Jensen in trouble, Coach warned him about another plate coming up ahead. Jensen immediately turned his car toward it and pushed the accelerator down, racing straight toward the symbol before Hennessy's people could take another chance away from him. Jensen's car was now getting very close to the shield plate, but before he could reach it, Machine Gun Joe fired a missile toward him. The missile hit near the plate and destroyed it before Jensen could use it. Even then, Jensen did not slow down. He pushed Frankenstein's car to full speed and kept moving forward. Seeing Jensen still alive, Hennessy quickly ordered her guard to activate the bomb that had secretly been planted inside his car. Jensen had no idea that an explosive had already been placed there, but this time Hennessy's plan was not going to work the way she expected. A little later, Joe fired several heavy shells toward Jensen's car. Luckily, the shots missed him by a very small distance and smashed directly into the prison wall ahead. The powerful explosion tore a huge opening through the wall. Jensen and Joe immediately drove through the broken section and escaped outside the prison. At first, Hennessy thought Jensen had been killed in the blast, but when she looked carefully, she was shocked. Both Jensen and Machine Gun Joe had disappeared from the prison grounds with their cars. She quickly realized that they had never been racing only to win. They had used the final race as a plan to escape from Terminal Island together. Jensen and Joe looked at each other and smiled because everything had gone exactly as they had planned. Furious, Hennessy immediately sent guards and police vehicles after them. She then picked up the remote connected to the bomb inside Jensen's car and pressed the button, but nothing happened. The bomb had already been removed by Coach before the race, so Hennessy's final trap completely failed. Her anger became even worse, and she sent armed helicopters after the two escaping racers. Jensen and Joe continued driving at full speed while police vehicles chased them from behind. To slow the police down, Jensen released a fuel tank onto the road. Moments later, several police cars crashed and exploded behind them, but the helicopters were still following from above, so Jensen and Joe eventually split up and took different routes. Hennessy kept trying to track Jensen, but he had another part of the escape plan ready. While his car was still moving, Jensen jumped out and Case immediately took control of the vehicle. The police did not notice Jensen leaving the car, so they continued chasing Case, believing Frankenstein was still inside. Case kept driving while the helicopter followed her. Soon explosions were fired around her path, forcing her to stop the car. She got out before the police arrived, but the guards quickly surrounded her and took her into custody. Meanwhile, Jensen met up with Machine Gun Joe, and the two managed to get onto a train. After everything they had survived inside Terminal Island, they were finally moving away from the prison and toward freedom. Back at the prison, Hennessy believed the situation was finally under control. A package was brought to her, and she opened it expecting something harmless. Instead, she found the explosive device that had been removed from Jensen's car. Coach had arranged for it to be sent back to her. Before Hennessy could do anything, the bomb exploded and killed her, bringing her deadly game to an end. After escaping, Jensen was finally able to leave the prison world behind and start a new life. And with that, the story of Death Race comes to an end. If you liked this movie recap, then like the video and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to our channel to see more such amazing movie recaps. Thanks for watching.